A long time ago, I wrote this story, a short fiction story about this guy who gets asked to go get ice while he's at this family event. Now, his family lives in the desert, and they made this like party kind of thing in the desert. My family's from the desert, and this is actually where the story is based. Right? Again, fictional, right? So this guy goes out to get ice, and on his way back, he notices there's no more cars, there's no more family, there's no more music, no more kids running around, no more nothing. It's empty. And he's like, where'd everybody go? I was gone for like 5 minutes. All of a sudden, he hears this like hovering sound, this like vibrating kind of sound. The wind comes in, and all of a sudden, he's back. The music's back, everybody's back, and he's just like nothing ever changed. Now, there's a little hint in the story there, which is he was leaving a trail of like water that's dripping from the ice bag. And it's supposed to kind of tell you that this is about a time slip incident. What is a time slip incident? Is when supposedly you are somewhere and you get taken back in time or pushed into the future for just an instant, and you can see how things were or are gonna be at some other time period. Are these things possible? Are they always alien abduction kind of things? That's what we're gonna get into today. You ready? My name is Edwin, and this is Paranormal Club. I think the most famous case that I found throughout the whole thing, and it just kept repeating over and over and over, was the Versailles time slip incident, aka the Moberly Jourdain incident. And this story takes place back in Europe, and it's 1901. So there's these two women. Their names are Charlotte and Eleanor, and they're intellectual. They're smart. They're completely reasonable people. Is that what you call them when they can reason well? They can reason well. They're highly educated too, so you wouldn't doubt them. Like, you trust them immediately. So they go to the Versailles area, and this is like this huge, I'm not too familiar with any of these kinds of things, but it's a very important building, and it's very beautiful, and you can still visit it today. And they're trying to find Marie Antoinette's Petit Trianon, which is mispronounced by me, but basically it's this other area, other touristy kind of a spot. And basically they need to go from one area to another, and they have to cross this garden kind of thing. And they're like, you know what, let's just do it. People used to walk a lot back then. Actually, yeah, it was totally normal to walk that much. So they're like, we'll just find it. They start going through the gardens, and then they kind of get lost. They're like, where are we? But who cares? It's a nice area. It's beautiful. Like, we'll figure it out. So as they're going, they start seeing they start feeling a little bit weird. Like, they have this sense that everything is wrong. Like, the air is a little bit thicker now. It's heavy. There's no wind anymore. Like, no shadows that are moving. Like, everything's kind of still. Imagine yourself in a painting or like a photograph. It's like that. Everything is kind of looking lifeless. Even though they're in a place where there's a lot of greenery, a lot of flowers, a lot of stuff like that. That's where they find this man who's dressed in like old-fashioned, actually a couple of men. They're dressed in old-fashioned green coats. They kind of seem from like not from that time period. They get a little bit weirded out, especially with the whole like what is it called? Those hats, tricorn hats. You know how like Captain Crunch, and like how they have that, like he has that like hat. I don't know, actually, I think he might have the other hat. What kind of hat does he have? But anyways, one of those triangle kinds of hats. They're like, this is weird. Like, it's not from this era. They also see this woman who's standing completely still outside of this cottage. There's a child there too. They have like this water jug or something where it's just like, it's not making any noise. Like, it's kind of dull, kind of frozen in time. But there is some movement with the people. Like, as in, you can tell that they're alive. Like, they're not like mannequins or anything. Then they see this creepy guy. And he's kind of sitting near a gazebo, and he's really strange looking. Like, he looks like he's sick. He looks evil. Like, you want to get away from him. They kind of hesitate to keep going, but they're like, okay, let's just go. We're already here. We don't know where we are. Let's just try to get out of here, right? Then this man appears, and he's like, in French. Is it French? Yeah. You guys are going the wrong way. Go the other way. They follow his directions, and they turn the other way and keep walking. Now, this is where things are starting to get a little bit weird, right? Because they realize something is off. They're not really talking about it, but they can sense it. Next thing you know, the one of the women sees this other woman sitting on the grass, and she's kind of sketching. As she's passing by, she kind of goes like, how do you do that? It's like that greeting where you kind of nod a little bit. Trying to be fancy here. But the other lady doesn't see her at all. Like, Charlotte's the one that sees her, and Eleanor's like, I didn't see that. Now, how do we know about this? I'll tell you. I'll tell you how we know who saw what, because they're not talking about it at the moment, right? Later, they figure out who it might have been, right? Which is really interesting. Hint: it might have been Marie Antoinette, even though there's no way she'd be alive at that moment. Like, no way. This is what, hundreds of years later? Anyway, suddenly the atmosphere kind of changes, and they're back. They keep walking, and they walk into like this normal area where people are hanging out, and everything is back to normal. Now, as time went on, they start realizing like this was weird, right? And one of them becomes so obsessed with it that they research for years. Like, she's going through records of like what might have happened, what did people look like back then, what was this area all about. Now, eventually, she's convinced that she traveled through time, like the time, there's a time slip, and all of a sudden she was in another area, another time. They actually wrote this book separately. They were documenting their own experiences, but they ended up writing this book where they talk about their story. Everything that they seemed to describe matched 18th century Versailles, like the area. How did that happen? You can't imagine the drama all this stuff caused from back then, which was they're just making stuff up, or wow, this is really interesting, really cool. But anyway, either way, that book that they wrote, actually, and they wrote it with pen names, not even with their own names. They wanted to kind of stay anonymous, but they were a little bit strange, like seen a little bit strange later on. Like, they had paranormal beliefs around the university. They weren't really, I mean, they were still trusted, but still, like, eventually they came forth and like, yeah, we wrote that. So did they actually step back into 1789? Did they actually see Marie Antoinette out there? There was a lot of women out there, at the time. How is that even possible? There were people who read the book and all these accounts that were saying, you know what? You might have just walked into like a people cosplaying that, as in like a party where like you reenact. I guess that's common. I didn't know this. Those of you who follow these kinds of traditions or like European kind of parties, do you like dress up in like old-fashioned clothes and like pretend you're in a different time period? I mean, I don't find it like, I find it a little strange to me, right? It's a little weird. But is that a thing? I'm just curious. I'm asking. Because when you have two people, highly educated people, go through something like that, do we believe them? Case number 2. This is actually something that's still ongoing right now. Bold Street, Liverpool. It's July 1996. There's this off-duty cop. His name's Frank. And he's like, I'm going to go meet my wife at a bookstore. Let's go meet up there. And he goes into the bookstore, enters this weird silent area. And things just start becoming a little weird. Like, things just get weird because he sees this vintage delivery van. He almost gets hit by it, actually. And he's like, what? I've never seen this before. You can tell when a car looks old, like not from that era, and have it running perfectly and almost run you over, actually. A little weird. And he looks around at that moment. And he's like, whoa, I'm alive. Or maybe I'm not alive anymore. And I did get hit by that car and I'm dead. Because the street looks different. Completely different. Like, it doesn't look from that era anymore. The modern cars are all gone. All the cars are replaced with like older ones and less cars. Then the ones that are there are like from the 1950s. People are dressed like they're from the 1950s. And he's like, what? Like, for me, I mean, okay. I think personally, if I were in this time slip incident, I wouldn't know what was going on. I would just be like, what in the world? I would voice my thoughts, and I would just be like, is this happening? Am I real? Is this real life? It's strange. It's kind of like, when I told you guys that I saw an apparition for the first time ever. Actually, the first and only time I think I've seen an actual thing that I found out was not there. And it feels like time is warped. Like, you're not really there. Like, it's just, for me, it was like, I felt like throwing up. But time slips. Imagine all of a sudden you're in the 1950s. First off, you need to know what the 1950s looked like, right? I don't think I would know, especially in an area like that. But also, there's roads where there shouldn't be roads, or there weren't roads anymore. It reminds me a lot of like when you're, I don't know if this happens to you, but like, do you ever wonder what your street looked like with nothing in it? Like back when like the dinosaurs were roaming the earth. I think of that every once in a while. And seeing a road or like a picture of like an old historical picture of your city where your house is built now. It used to be like cow fields, for example, like for me. It's strange, right? Also, the bookstore is gone in this case, in Frank's story. It's now this shop called Crips. It's selling purses and shoes. All of a sudden, he sees this one woman that's dressed in modern clothes, follows her into the store, and then he's just back in the 1990s in the bookstore. Now, here is what made it weird. Frank looked into this and found that Crips was actually a real store, the real name of a store, and it was right where that bookstore was. So what does that tell you? Proof. Time slips. He went back in time. Now, it would be interesting enough right there if we just left it at that. But Bold Street actually has a lot more stories of time slips. There's this teenager who supposedly runs into the 1960s. There's a student who sees Victorian Liverpool. Woman shops at a store where there's no shops there. I mean, are these things true? Let's accept them as true for now. That means that where are we? I'm talking about in terms of like time and space. Are we here right now? Are you actually watching me right now? Like, are we? What's happening? Okay, let's stop thinking. If you think about it too much, you can go a little bit like, you can escape reality. Not sure we want to do that today. Is it an urban legend? Are these stories made up? Is it memories that are, what do they call false memories? Like things that we remember but didn't actually happen, but we remember them? Or is us learning about time slips becoming a thing where we tell our own stories of time slips, we get them to be a little more elaborate? Why are people reporting these experiences on the same street? It's weird. I'm starting to feel really weird right now. I'm questioning reality. Is it a glitch in the Matrix? Is it a portal of some sort? Now we have to understand. I still don't really understand what portals are. I remember I was doing this. I was taking this tour, a ghost tour in Portland a while back, and I realized what it's like to be around people who are like eager to believe in the paranormal and ghosts and stuff. And I realized this at one moment when we're in this parking lot where supposedly there was a building there that got, it burned down basically, and you can still see kind of remnants of what it used to be against one of the walls. And I remember clear as day, right? By the way, it's nighttime. The tour guide is talking, and all of a sudden I do this. I like look to my right, and everybody looks at me. They're like, "What did you see?" And I was like, "Oh no, I just thought I saw something on the asphalt, on the parking lot, on the ground." And the tour guide's like, "What did it look like? Did it look like a flame?" And the other guy's like, "I thought I saw something too." And then they started talking about it. And next thing you know, the tour guide's like talking about, actually no, it was one of the other people where they were talking about like how it might have been a portal. And I'm like, whoa, that just slipped out of my hands. Like that just, I'll just let them think what they want to think. But it was strange, right? And when I'm like, you can see a portal? I started thinking about what the heck are portals. I still don't know what a portal is. A pathway, a way to get into a different world, different realm. I have no idea I can kind of understand a little bit of like, I don't know. Actually, I take that back. I have no idea. But what does it mean? Like, is it a thin spot of reality? Can you cross it? And you cross time and space and everything. How does that work? If you're ever bored and look into Bold Street and all the other accounts that are around the area, they're very interesting. So I will look them up. I think it's worth it. I found a lot, but like believable, sure. True, maybe. But there's so many that now, since it's common knowledge, like you can hear a lot of stories of people just kind of adding onto it. I don't know. To me, that's kind of loses it a little bit unless you find something a little more compelling, but still very interesting. There's this other case that I found, and this is also taking place in France. So it's 1979. There are two couples who are driving down this beautiful French countryside road, and they see this charming old inn. They're like, we should probably spend the night there, which I think is how we're supposed to do road trips anyway. I mean, the only places where I go is like up and down the 5 freeway in California. I don't think I'd like to stay anywhere there. Not along there. But I think back then, times were different. And you could see this in movies too, where like people are driving around. They're like, let's stay there. Anyway, this is what they decide to do. And there's a couple weird things about that inn, which are there's no phones. The windows have no glass, which is a red flag, right? Why would you stay there? I don't know. There's no modern conveniences. And it feels like, yeah, it's old fashioned, but it's not like nice old fashioned. You know, when you go to a hotel and it's like nice old? Well, this one was old, old. You probably know what I mean. And they're like, well, that was weird. They get back in the car, they decide to leave, and they're like, well, I mean, I liked it. 2 weeks later, they're like, you know what? Let's go visit it again. Like it was cool. Like let's go back. They drive around and they don't see it. They're like, did we go past it? What happened? Who knows? They try to find it again and nothing. The place doesn't exist. It's completely gone. Was it demolished? Was it ever there? Now, here is the creepy part. Before leaving, they had taken a picture in front of that inn. And when they go and get their vacation photos, those photos that are connected in any way to the inn are gone. They're missing. They're not in that camera roll. What? Did the building just disappear? Was it like leave no trace and it took the photos too? Now, of course, there's a couple theories. Things that, we wonder about this specific thing, which is, were they somewhere else? Were they drunk? Were they drunk driving? Were they tired from driving and they're like, oh yeah, it was here, but really it's not there anymore? Did they think that they took pictures and didn't take the pictures? Was it just faulty? Like, was it not working? Maybe the camera wasn't working outside. Did light slip in there when they were outdoor? Things, whatever. Did they make up the story as they kept telling the story over time? Which happens. Come on, let's admit it, right? Like maybe when you're retelling a story or something that happened with your friend, maybe that actually didn't happen like how you described it. But like your friend kind of egged on, like you guys added to that story, and it turned into this like wild night when really you guys were just playing Monopoly at home. Like it can happen. And I know that because, we get to hear, I personally get to hear a bunch of stories every single week. And I get to hear also experiences from people. And when I ask and I'm like, did that happen like that? Did it do this? And, people really open up and they tell me about what happened to them. It doesn't seem particularly embellished, but when you have something that goes popular like that, or like everybody's interested in the story, you're going to add on to it. So which is stranger in this story? The inn disappearing or the missing photographs? And what do you find more of a creepy angle to this story? Let me know. Case number 4, we have the envelope shop, which I guess are a thing. Actually, I should know that. I actually have a small business where I run, like I make notebooks. I used to make them myself. Now we just have them produced and sent to a warehouse and distributed. It's called M Notes if you guys are interested. EMNOTES, M Notes. So I did learn about envelopes and stuff because it has to do with paper and where you buy stuff. But anyway, there's this envelope shop. And we are in England again, 1973. This man goes into a stationery store. We all love those. And he buys 36 envelopes. The weird thing is that the shop guy, the shopkeeper, the clerk, is dressed in like Edwardian clothing. Not sure if you can picture that, Edwardian clothing, because I can't. I really need to get more familiar with these kinds of stories. Like I love the ghost stories and everything, but whenever they mention any kings and queens and styles and eras, I'm like, blank. Even though I'm starting to get really into history, like really, really into it. The guy feels really well, actually he sees the guy and he's like, this guy doesn't belong here. Like he's weirdly out of place. Like nowadays, I think that would be a little more acceptable because we see people in cosplay all the time and we see people expressing themselves through fashion in their own ways. So, to each of their own. But this guy just looks weird. Plus, remember, it's 1973 at the time. 3 weeks later, the guy goes back to the store and everything looks modern, like it was remodeled. He's like, whoa, that's weird. Wonder what happened to that Edwardian guy. Turns out there's this other employee there. And when he asks about the envelopes, they're like, what's weird? Those envelopes, like we stopped making them like 15 years ago. Where'd you get them? Like, you're weird. What makes this interesting is that you have this object, these envelopes that are no longer in production. Now you have them and you purchase them. They traveled back in time and you still have them. But what do you think? Maybe they had extra envelopes somewhere and they were hidden? I wonder what could happen. What else? What other kind of thing? Like maybe you don't remember things properly. Faulty memory, which is also a thing. Or maybe misidentified products. Maybe the guy who said, well, we stopped making these 15 years ago, really thought they were other kinds of envelopes. Maybe he's his excuse, his excuse to not give them to him, or why they don't have them in stock anymore. Like, that's weird. You want those, but they haven't been in production for been 15 years. But how? Let's just assume it was real. How does an object travel back? It has happened before where actual physical objects are said to appear and people can see them, interact with them. And then when they try to like show somebody, the object's gone. There's this other one. I think this is also pretty popular too. Is one of the ones that you can make like a documentary out of, and it's the Kersey time slip incident. Now here's the story. 1957, you have 3 teenage Navy cadets, and they're doing this map making exercise, like reading exercise, where they're given a map and they have to find their way, or like some military exercise. They're going to this village, and they're near a Suffolk area, and they suddenly hear church bells. Birds are chirping. There's smoke coming out from the chimneys. They're like, oh, this place is like booming. But then suddenly everything stops. The bells stop. No more church bells. The birds be quiet. The wind stops. The trees suddenly look like they're not in that same season where they were. Now it's in the summer. And in the village, there's no more people. There's no cars, no power lines, no dirt road. And there's dirt roads instead of like what we know as roads today with like asphalt or paved roads. And the creepiest part, I think, out of the whole thing is that there are ducks that are like walking or in little ponds areas, but they're just there, like not moving. Now I know ducks act in really weird ways. Birds do in general. I used to have a pet chicken, so I know that they act really weird. Sometimes they can stay in a certain area. Ooh, that got weird. I think one of the lights just went out. But anyway, they do act weird, but they were just frozen in time. The houses were empty, and they were walking around the village, by the way. And it's not just one person, it's multiple people, right? There's 3 of them. And there's rotten animal carcasses hanging inside this butcher shop. Everybody suddenly left the village? That actually happened? So they start feeling this like intense dread, like sadness, similar to that first story, right? The Versailles time slip incident. This like dread, depression, heavy, sad feeling. And then they feel like they're being watched. They're like, let's get out of here. They run out of the village, and all of a sudden the normal sounds start. Bells, wind, birds. They're back to normal. Here's the strange thing. These guys, these boys, remember it very clearly. Actually, 2 of them think that they remember this very clearly, but the third one says nothing like that happened. Who do we believe? Of course, we have like the skeptics that say that, it was just you were affected by something, or misconception. You think misperception, I guess you would call it. You're perceiving something that's not really there. Maybe you just thought you saw that, and then it got reinforced by the other guy, and suddenly you time slipped. Or you go into this rural village and it just looks a lot older than it actually. Well, you suddenly get the sense of just how old it is, and you think you went back in time. When I get that strange feeling when like the atmosphere kind of changes? If you're ever at a beach and you're listening to the waves crashing, there is this moment sometimes, every once in a while, where there's no more waves that are crashing and it's just completely quiet. I imagine it like that. And I love that feeling, by the way. It only lasts for a little bit, because then the waves come back and you're like, back to normal. But every once in a while, it's like still. And it's really strange to have it that quiet in such a vast area. Like looking out into the ocean or the beach behind you or whatever. I'm thinking you're like a pier or something. That's what I imagine. But paranormally speaking here, these guys could have slipped into medieval England. Maybe they witnessed a moment close to the plague era. What about the butcher shop and the rotting meat? Now, we have to bring this up. Why do some witnesses remember everything while others don't remember it at all? Are they just trying not to be weird? Did they feel like they were being judged by sharing their story? A similar thing happened in this other case, actually, the Allagash abductions from 1976. Now, this is where we get into something cool, which is aliens. So, here's how it goes. It's August 1976, and there are 4 friends on a canoe trip in the Maine wilderness. Now, they wanted to get away from everything. Now, these guys are also art students, right? There's Jack and Jim. They're identical twins. Their last name is Wiener. It's just a last name. I just find it really cool. It's not as like I always try to keep like a mature face when I'm trying to say the name Dick or the last name. But I don't know, man. I don't know why I just get like that. Anyway, Jack and Jim Wiener, Charlie Foltz, and Chuck Rack. I'm not laughing at their names. I'm really not. It just is. They sound very like strong names. Chuck Rack, Charlie Foltz, Jack and Jim Wiener. They're all art students again, and they're spending 2 weeks camping. 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks camping in the wilderness, right? So they're having a good time. Anyway, the second night of the trip, Jim notices this bright object that's hovering above the trees, and he watches it with binoculars. He's like, "What is that thing?" And then it just goes away. It doesn't fly away. It just disappears. It doesn't zoom. It just vanishes. The group kind of thinks, "Oh well, weird stuff happens out in the wilderness," and they just keep going. But a few days later, when they're at Eagle Lake, they're out fishing in the canoe, and they leave a huge bonfire by like the shoreline area, and it's kind of like their beacon, like the way that they know how to get back to their area, because it's gonna get dark, right? All of a sudden, Chuck gets this feeling, like this classic paranormal feeling, and he says that he feels like they're being watched. Turns around, there's this huge glowing oval-looking shape above the trees. It's estimated, like it's huge, right? It's estimated to be like 80 feet across, and it's completely quiet. It's not like there's motors running, no engines, nothing. It's just quiet. It's pulsing red, green, yellow, and white, and it's just doing that thing. Charlie flashes an SOS signal with his flashlight. He's like, "Toot, toot, 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 toot." Big mistake. Why would you do that to like a UFO, dude? The UFO reacts. Like it starts moving closer to them and shoots this blue beam and like bluish white light straight to them. And it starts like chasing them basically. They're like, what do we do? So 3 of the guys, they start paddling as fast as they can. They're like, we need to get back. Trying to get away. But Chuck is just there. Chuck Rack. He's just frozen. He's like, no reaction, nothing. Nothing's coming out of him. He's like almost hypnotized. This is what they described him as. And then the beam apparently engulfs the whole canoe. Next thing they know, they're now standing back at the shore. And they're watching the object kind of hovering nearby. And it just shoots up towards the sky and disappears. Now, the weirdest detail here is that they think that only 15 or 20 minutes had gone by. But the giant bonfire that they had made was like almost completely burned out. That means it must have been a long time. Right? If you're familiar with that, which I'm not, logs, anything that you put like that, it does last a while. I mean, someone out there can tell me how long a typical log would last in a bonfire. But like, a long time had passed apparently because it was dying out. There's actually just glowing coals left there. So the bonfire should have lasted hours. Something just doesn't add up. And another weird thing is that nobody was freaking out about it. They just kind of accepted it as a thing that happened. And all 4 of them are like really, really, really tired, and they go straight to sleep. They don't really talk about it anymore. 12 years later, 1988, the twins start having nightmares. In the nightmares, they are in this bright room. There are these strange figures around. They're sitting naked on a beach. The friends are sitting beside them, and they're being examined. Now, they don't understand where these nightmares are coming from, right? But they start connecting things little by little. They're also able to describe the beings. They said they had large heads, huge metallic-looking eyes, long necks. Did I say that already? Large heads, long necks, metallic-looking eyes, 4-fingered hands, and then a very classic gray alien type description. They were abducted by aliens. Or so they think, right? They contact this UFO researcher. His name is Raymond Fowler. He's coming. He's back. I talked about them before, actually. And all four undergo this hypnosis separately, like a hypnosis session. And what they report is that they were being taken into an aircraft. They were examined, like medical examination style. They get skin samples taken, blood samples taken, and physical procedures, which I don't really understand what kind, but like, poking around and stuff. Now, all four of them, again, they're art students. They're trained artists, and they can draw independently the UFO, the examination room, the entities, the whole thing. And the sketches are reported to be very similar to each other. Now, supporting evidence here is that they do a psychiatric evaluation, polygraph test, multiple witnesses are there, as kind of to add to the story. The polygraph test, they say that they believe that what they saw was real, true, and they're not lying. They get evaluated, totally normal people. What the heck happened? So it became famous because of that. You have four people, shared experience, you have missing time, everything's consistent. However, 2016, things change. Chuck Rack changes the story. I hope his name's right, by the way. I hope I'm saying it right. His claim is that the UFO sighting was real, but the abduction story is fake. He says that parts were exaggerated for money. Dang, he just ruined the story. And they also said that they were using hash during the trip. So the others pushed back and they're like, no, that's not true, man. We were not doing that. Not at that moment. It was not a hoax. We didn't get money off of it. And they continue to stand by the abduction story to this day. So now we have two mysteries, right? Did they actually experience an abduction, or did they gradually build a shared story over time? What do you think happened? Would you believe this story if you heard them telling you the stories, like personally, seeing a documentary about them? It's hard to say. It's hard to make a judgment call because you're talking about somebody else's experience. Like, you don't have a right to say it's not real, and you also can't like stand up for them and be like, yeah, I was there too, because you weren't. But these incidents are very interesting, considering multiple witnesses, people that are willing to put their reputations on the line about this. It's a interesting take. I guess it takes some courage to come out and say something like that. That's so bizarre and so out there. But when you see people reacting to them and being like, wow, that's so cool. And like, you get money, I don't know, you get acknowledged somehow, you get fame. You kind of follow along with it, right? It's a strange thing to think about when we're talking about these events, because it opens up a whole thing of discussion. Like, when you cross into a new realm, per se, are you seeing the ghost, quote unquote, of an area? Like, not of a person, but like a whole thing. Buildings, roads, cars. Are you seeing an imprint of that at that moment? Does that change completely how we see ghosts? Like, are they just records playing over and over, or memories appearing out of nowhere? Is time slipping? Are ghosts people that are like living in a different era and you just kind of cross for like a little bit? Like, if you're here, they're there, and you just kind of cross for a little bit and then you just go back to normal? And then we call them ghost sightings. Does that happen? That's just what I'm wondering. Is that possible? I don't know. If you don't find that cool, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say, because it's strange. It's a very strange thing to think about. But I'm curious to know what you think about time slips. What you thought of these cases. Are they all fake? Have you heard about them before, and do they have a different angle to the story? And let me know what you think. I don't think I've ever gone through like a time slip kind of thing, except for there was one time when I found something really weird, which was I was at a Denny's, and I remember hearing the waitress say something like, oh, don't worry about it, let me get you some napkins, or something like that. I wrote it down. I wrote down that experience I remember. But I heard that. I turned around and like I didn't see anything. Next thing you know, I'm sitting down eating, and I hear the waitress say the exact same thing after somebody spilled something. Like, oh no, don't worry, I got it. The exact same line. And I'm like, whoa, what just happened? Like, I saw the future for a little bit. But that was, I mean, I wouldn't consider it a time slip thing, but it might have been like a deja vu kind of thing. Are deja vus different than time slips? Interesting. Let me know what you think. I want to get more cases of this, or if you heard of any of these of cases of time slip incidents, send them my way, please. You have my contact information in the description of every episode, Edwin at paranormalclub.com. You can also go to paranormalclub.com and submit the story there through the contact form. I'd be super interested in learning more. But anyway, that's all I got for you this week. Thank you so much for coming back to Paranormal Club. And I'm here in case you have any paranormal experiences you want to share, because I'm putting together a listener submitted stories episode. So everything goes. Right? So just submit them. Send them my way. As always, keep it scary, everyone. Thanks for watching or listening, by the way. But yeah, keep it scary. See you soon.